Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Ask Parul, where we deep dive into the world of professional growth, financial security, and personal development. I'm your host Parul, and I'm here to guide you on this journey to success. In today's episode, I will have my guest Josh Gilbert, who is a market analyst at eToro, which is world's leading social trading and multi-asset investment company. We will explore the world of finance and investments around financial tips, investment strategies, market trends, and lots more. So, lots of knowledge and insights coming your way. So, grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's get started on this exciting podcast. Stay tuned. Hi, Josh. Welcome to my channel.
Hi, Parul. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, hi everyone. We have Josh Gilbert, who is the market analyst at the world's leading social investment network, eToro, and he comments about Australian and global markets. Josh is based in Australia and has been with eToro for almost 4 years. And he has over 8 years of overall experience in the world of finance and investments, beginning his career as an investment broker at a small age of 18. Josh has studied business and finance at Truro and Penwith College in England. And beyond market analysis, Gilbert usually hosts the Global eToro podcasts. I will give the link in my description link so you can go and check those podcasts out. He also specializes in global equities, crypto assets, and portfolio diversification. So thank you so much, Josh. Maybe I think we'll just get started with a little bit about your personal journey. You started at the age of 18, which is quite young, right? So what really excited about this world of finance and investments? And yeah, just a little bit about your personal journey, how you got started, and what's keeping you going.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. First of all, and thanks for that very nice introduction. Yeah, so I did start when I was 18, quite a young age to sort of really get started in finance. I guess you could say I got a bit of a lucky break in sort of some cases. Was very fortunate to have an opportunity to sort of work in finance and sort of built from there. Really, I must say I wasn't interested necessarily in finance when I was sort of younger. It wasn't necessarily something I thought I would do. But as soon as I started it sort of became a real passion for me. I very quickly became passionate about, helping people learn investing, educating others, and really understanding the importance of investing as well. I think a great example of that is someone like my mum, for example, had sort of really no idea about finance, and within obviously a few years I'd managed to obviously grow a huge knowledge of that. So I think that was a real opportunity for me, was to sort of be able to help everyday people understand the importance of investing, really.
Perfect. I think you're doing some amazing work, really. And I've seen some of your podcasts. They're really good.
Thank you.
Cool. So I think let's just get started with I'll just get started with asking you that the world of finance and investments is huge, right? So, according to you, and as per your analysis, what are the three hottest financial topics that every investor must absolutely know about? You know, those quick financial bites that could help every investor, no matter where they are in their journey. So, how can they educate themselves around to become more financially savvy? And as per your analysis, what are the three quick bites that you would want to talk about?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and I guess that depends on sort of where you are in your investing journey, really. So if you have some understanding of financial markets, or if you're just sort of starting out, the financial markets is for everyone, and particularly here at eToro, one of our sort of goals and our mission is to sort of democratize finance, open up the world of finance for everybody. For many, many years, it was just seen for the likes of Wall Street and big bankers and people that sort of had a huge understanding. That's simply not the case these days. Being able to invest is easier than ever. But also, we've built the opportunity for investors to feel comfortable doing that, which is sort of really important. Firstly, I think probably the first one before you do anything is have a budget and have an emergency fund. That is just sort of really key. You don't want to sort of be investing more than you can afford. And that's sort of really important. We want to start with that. We understand how much you can put aside each month. And then I think the second one that then sort of ties in nicely is then bringing you on to understanding your goals and your timelines, because that then comes back to what you can afford and how long you're willing to invest, right? We want to sort of be able to invest into markets and allow it to grow and flourish. And again, we'll probably get onto it throughout this chat. But again, a lot of the time I talk about sort of time in markets rather than trying to actually time the market. And that's sort of really important. So understanding how long you want to be invested for, timelines. Are you trying to get to a specific goal? Are you trying to, grow your wealth by X amount? Is it for a house? Whatever that might be, really important. And again, that comes back to sort of how you keep that sort of money invested. Because if you need that capital back next week, it's probably not wise to sort of invest it into stock markets, given, we can see volatility and sort of fluctuations. And then finally, just in terms of really getting into investments, it's diversify. Make sure you're not overexposed to one industry, one geography. Really ensuring that you have a broad portfolio that is sort of mixed. Having just sort of one asset is, it sets you up for increased risk. Being able to diversify really helps. I think if anything, the last few years have shown that, anything could be thrown at investors: pandemics, inflation, interest rates. So having a mix of, different sectors, geographies in the portfolio is really important.
Yeah, and I think you made this very good point around diversification. This is something that I also personally have witnessed. You should never keep all your eggs in one basket. And I think for that, it's so important that you should start from somewhere, right? At least, start on this journey. And I think a lot of people have this fear as well around investments. They fear, okay, and it's also because a lot of people are selling this dream as well, oh, you will get a millionaire by buying this kind of stocks, etc. I think, people should really educate themselves around finance and investments is something that I personally feel for. So just talking a little bit about diversification. So we have different kind of instruments, right? So we have stocks, we could have ETFs, managed funds, index funds, and then you have cryptos, etc. So how do people can justify can diversify themselves? And when they are choosing a financial instrument, I think one thing you pointed out is towards which goal are you looking for? But when they are looking for an instrument, how do they choose which instrument to go for? And let's say if we talk about ETFs, for example, how do you choose? Because there are different kind of constraints, right? It could be an expense ratio and then fees, other stuff. So how can people make informed decisions when on this journey?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd say is, preaching diversification is probably heard quite often, but it is really key to any sort of investment portfolio. The old saying of sort of not putting all your eggs in sort of one basket. So that's really important. Secondly, it comes down to sort of risk tolerance, understanding the risk of each asset class. If you're investing into a stock, something like Apple, for example, that is going to be far less risk than investing into something like a crypto asset, which has a long history of obviously volatility. So understanding the differences of risk is really important, and how much risk you're willing to take on in your portfolio as well. If you're someone who likes to sort of take less risk, then that is going to be important to someone who can maybe take a little bit more risk. And again, that comes back to goals, timelines, how you're doing that. That is sort of really, really important. And then that risk profile is something that I think will carry you through a long period of time, and it will help you decide on which investments are suitable, because diversification can help reduce that risk in a portfolio, but not if you're only including sort of high risk assets as well. And then when it comes to sort of picking assets, I think that comes down to whether you maybe want to be an active or passive investor. So if you want to be, slightly more involved, then you could maybe then choose to sort of pick stocks. And I think that comes back to your time. Do you have time to set aside a few hours a week, or however much time, to do your research, do analysis, look into stocks, understanding how that business makes money? Is that how you want to sort of get involved? If not, if you want to be slightly more passive and say, let experts do it for you, maybe you could look at something like ETFs. You could look at things like Copy Trader or the portfolios that eToro offer to sort of let, it be a little bit more passive. You kind of take a bit more of a back seat. You've still got to choose mind, which is something that I think is really important. It's not that you can just pick anything and go from there. So with something like ETFs, for example, you obviously have your index funds. We have ETFs that are focused on specific sectors, specific geographies. So you can have ETFs that are focused on specifically investing in the UK or Australia. Then you can have ETFs that are focused specifically on gold and so on. So again, depends on the assets that you want exposure to. And then it comes back to understanding what's in that ETF as well, because an ETF can be, hundreds and hundreds of stocks. So for example, the S&P 500, that index fund is made up of the 500 companies in the US. So again, really important to understand what's in there. So for example, Apple will have a huge weighting on an index fund of the S&P 500. If you already own Apple shares, it may not be wise to take out an S&P 500 ETF, given you're sort of then what feels like doubling up your exposure. So understanding what's in those ETFs, looking at, costs and ratios. These days, ETFs are sort of super cheap. The fees are sort of relatively low. You won't really notice them. But again, checking that when buying an ETF is sort of really important.
So if you have enjoyed this session so far, do give it a thumbs up, do subscribe to my channel, and also look into the finance and investment section of my channel for other useful videos around finance and investments. And if you're interested to know more about eToro or signing up for them, do use the links given in my description box to get some additional discount. Enjoy the session. Yeah, I think you've made some really, really good points. I think one of the things which I really liked is to have your own personal risk profile, because a lot of time people just take a friend's advice or a family person advice, etc., without really knowing their own personality, which is so important, because I think something which has worked for someone may not actually work for you as an individual. So it's really important to understand that what's your natural style. Are you a more conservative sort of person, or do you naturally have that risk appetite to go for a bit more? And I think secondly, you also mentioned around active and passive investing, which is also very critical to talk about. So I believe eToro does provide, for different kind of investors, no matter where you are in your journey, you do provide specific product and services that can help investors. It need not to be a certain kind of profile for you to go and actively start trading on eToro, right?
Yeah. So, as an investor, anybody can get started on eToro. Obviously, you have to go through sort of our KYC processes, open the account, but anybody can be an investor. And then we give you the opportunity to, if you wish, be a popular investor. So if you are good at investing and you want other people to sort of copy your trades, if you're more hands-on, you can do that, or you can copy someone else as well, which is one of our unique features.
Okay, perfect. So you can copy someone else, like any public figure or anyone else, so you have everything out there, right? Okay.
So copy trading allows investors to copy what we would call we call them popular investors. So we have a program in place which essentially allocates say status to certain investors. So you can start at what we would call a cadet all the way up to our elite pros. So elite pros, you have to meet a sort of certain criteria to get to that point. You have to have been on eToro for a certain period of time and lots of other criteria to sort of get to that. So we would say that, again, those are the people that sort of we would recommend that you look at sort of copying, is the people who have the most experience. They have their own unique strategy, risk levels, and what's really important is a transparent track record. You can go back and see their stats and their performance ever since the day they started investing on eToro. So you can see every month the percentage that they have made, since their time at being with eToro. And that's really key, is ultimately, being able to see that transparently. You can choose one, you can build a team, you can have 100 traders working for you. It's completely up to you, but it's a great way to, take a little bit of sort of weight off your shoulders and allow what we would say an expert to sort of do the work for you.
Perfect. And is there any minimum investment required for anyone to sign up and get started with eToro? Like, are there some minimum criteria or anything like that?
So you can invest from as little as $10. So
Okay,
on
that's
sort of US
fast.
stocks, Australian stocks, you can start from as little as $10. And that's,
Perfect.
for us being able to offer fractional shares, again, democratizing, making sure that anybody can sort of start their investing journey, even if it's sort of really small. Getting started is what I would say is one of the most important ways to get involved with
Right.
markets. Even if it's in a small way, try your hand, get started. It's really important to start as early as you can.
I absolutely agree because I remember I started my investment journey when I actually started a bit late when I was in my late 20s, but I think that was the best decision. At that time, I was so scared because, I think that's the natural fear that we have whenever we talk about stocks or shares or anything or ETFs. I think because of the lack of experience and knowledge, but I think, now if I look back, I started in 2015, basically my investment journey. So it's been like 8 or 9 years already. So now if I look back, I don't think that I would have ever been able to make that much money by just putting my money in a high interest savings account or let's say a fixed deposits or etc. I mean, yeah, sure, my money would have grown by a few percentage, but I don't think so. The growth would have been that much, at least in double digits, by just. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think it's like you said, it's important to diversify. And I just personally, my strategy is to basically keep my portfolio a bit more balanced. So I'll have some equities, I'll have some debts, I'll also have some emergency funds. And then obviously, I haven't never tried crypto, by the way, but I think, I've always limited myself to stocks and then mutual funds and also the debt funds and equity as well, because my personal risk profile, I'm not a very, very aggressive person. I believe in slow race, but a steady race is something that I personally believe in. Perfect. So just coming back to, I think were talking about the risk profile, but I think there is also this concept of risk versus return, right? Obviously, risk is one of the things, but most of the people, why they choose investment instruments is to get returns also. And sometimes people have this belief that, okay, when the market is down, they will generally try to pull out their money, but it's actually the other way around. You should invest more when the market is down because you can actually buy it at a much cheaper rate. So how do you balance this risk versus return profile, especially for somebody who wants to play a longer game, not just in the short run?
Yes, I think a big part of risk as well that doesn't come into the conversation very often is emotion as well. You spoke about sort of selling there when sort of markets, fall. So within the last sort of couple of weeks, there's been a great example of emotion, risk, and being invested into markets. So we had a fair bit of weakness through October and September in the S&P 500. Then we had 1 week on the S&P 500, and the S&P 500 rallied for 7 or 8 days straight, and essentially returned all of the losses that it had made over a 2-month period in 1 week. So what that shows is
Okay.
the importance of being invested in financial markets, not letting emotion rule your decisions and selling when markets fall, understanding why you bought the asset, understanding that risk profile, time in the market. If you bought a stock and your view on that stock was to hold it for 5 years, if it falls after a week by 5 or 10%, it may not be a good decision to sell that stock. It may be, but also, again, if you've bought this stock and you've done your research, again, just because the stock falls down by 5 or 10%, you shouldn't let emotion sort of take over. But again, yeah, risk is, that risk balance is sort of really important because some investors will be content to take more risk for, what is
Yeah.
potentially higher returns. Other investors are, maybe similar to you, who are slightly uneasy with sort of taking that risk. And that is
Yeah.
no problem at all. But I think understanding that investing comes with a risk, no matter what, there will always be a risk.
True.
This is not a savings account, right? You can pop your money into a savings account and
Yeah.
earn, 4%. But when you're investing into financial markets, there is that risk of, this a capital gain, but also a capital loss as well. Market
Yeah.
conditions and periods of, economic uncertainty can also influence, markets, and that can also affect a risk profile as well.
Yeah.
But it comes back to what we were saying earlier as well, is understanding each asset class's risks, making sure you're not overexposed to those assets, but also a great way to reducing risk is time. Longer term investments, are often considered to be more resilient, especially if we're thinking about market downturns and staying in financial markets. If you look at the growth, sort of the growth of the S&P 500 or even the ASX 200 over the years gone by, markets go up. History shows us that markets do eventually trend higher. So, sticking it out, time in the market reduces that risk, and essentially gives you time to sort of allow your investments to flourish, to recover if we do see a drop in value. But time is sort of really important in terms of helping reduce risk, and that comes back to goals and sort of timelines. But if you can look longer term, it will certainly help with risk.
Absolutely. I think in long term, it all balances out. That's been my personal experience. But I think there are also some strategies. So for example, I remember back in 2018 or something like that, I had a huge loss in my stock portfolio. And one thing which I learned, which I didn't knew at that time, was something called a stop loss. So you can actually minimize your loss if you can have stop loss actions in place. So which basically means that if a stock value go below that point, obviously, it will just stop trading so that it can minimize your losses. So I think that was something which was one of my biggest learning at that time. And that brings us to this topic, right? That why we should at least educate ourselves a little bit. And how does eToro basically helps investors, on this journey? Like I understand you have these product and services, but let's say somebody is just starting out, just being on eToro platform, how they can really enrich their journey.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways. So firstly, eToro is the world's largest community of traders and investors. So we have more than 30 million users across over 100 countries. And we're home to obviously beginner investors, talented, experienced investors. And that's sort of really important. As I say, you can have a public profile, you can show your performance, you can show how you've been getting on. But also, as I say, it's a community. It's an option for people to connect, to have conversations, to talk about their investments, to learn from each other. There is power in growing together. Knowledge through other people is fantastic. People sharing knowledge, growing knowledge. So we have what is called the eToro feed. So it's essentially like a social network through an investment platform. So you can post about your investments. You can ask questions to the community. People can comment. You can read posts. eToro analysts like myself, we also post insights onto the feed talking about financial markets day to day. So it's basically keeping everything in one place. And obviously, the growth of, say, things like social media and having the freedom of information has grown massively over the last few decades. Before you'd have to read a newspaper or whatever it may be. So being able to access that community is sort of really important. And we also have what is called the eToro Academy as well. So again, beginner to advanced investor, you can learn the very basics of getting started, which is how to pick a stock or how to find assets, how to build a portfolio, what is diversification, those sort of, very, very basic elements, even, how to use the platform, getting an understanding of financial markets. And then, slightly more advanced, understanding different strategies, understanding, how economies work and how that can affect stock markets. Lots of, different explainers and guides that can come in the form of guides, videos, webinars, podcasts. We have daily written content, as I say, from our sort of experts as well. So lots of different ways to sort of help grow your knowledge. And then also finally, the last one is we have a demo account as well. So a virtual account. So this allows users to understand the sort of simplicity and the ease of use of the platform. You get $100,000 demo account with funds in there. You can open and close trades, build a virtual portfolio, hone your trading and investment skills. Practice makes perfect. So before investing your own capital, you can sort of put everything into motion, practice and sort of give it a go without sort of committing your own capital.
Perfect. So I'm not too sure. Do you mind like giving a quick demo of eToro website? We spoke about so many things like copy trading, academy. what's in there for, people who are just starting out, and of course, more active traders. I think, yeah, potentially just a small demonstration for the viewers will be very, very helpful.
Sure. Let me just share my screen and we can go through it. So this is sort of the setup of the sort of the main eToro feed. So this is what we would call our sort of discover section. So as you can see, plenty of different assets, stocks, crypto, indices, commodities, ETFs. So, wealth of different assets for people to invest in. And again, we can help you find stocks. So show you the most popular stocks, what other people are investing in. So, Tesla is one of our most popular stocks here at eToro for sort of many of reasons. It's obviously had a great track record over the last few years, and Elon Musk is a character in himself. But in here,
Yeah.
plenty of information for investors, charts, what the analysts on Wall Street are thinking about the stock. So again, price targets. We have ECG scoring, which is sort of really important in terms of sustainability of a company, and a lot of investors nowadays choose to use ECG as part of their investment research.
Yeah.
We have the news, we have everything about the company, and then importantly, we have the feed. So as I mentioned earlier, being able to find out about a company, being able to find out what people are saying about a particular company is also sort of really important. So lots of discussions here from people across the world about Tesla and their portfolio and sort of what they own. So there's lots of information that you can get on a particular asset. We have really intuitive charts through TradingView, which allow you to do lots of technical analysis if that's something that you're into. We obviously have an analysis page, as I say, that allows you to say what the top analysts are saying about that particular stock with price targets, which I think is fantastic. And also stats as well. So diving into some of the fundamentals, of the business, whether that's, earnings, revenue, price to earnings ratios, market cap, lots of different information about their company and sort of financial summary. So that would be a stock, for example. Again, being on the demo account, you can buy, sell as you wish with $100,000 building that sort of portfolio. So that's one stock. If you wanted to, copy someone, find a portfolio to copy, we have just some sort of suggestions here of people to look at, but there are other ways to sort of search for traders. So on this sort of section at the top here under copy trader, it will give us, a big broad range of investors. And here we can then find who we want to sort of select. So we can filter this by risk score, the assets that they invest in, how often they hold their positions. So it's a really great way to sort of find investors. Here you can see some of the top investors at eToro as well. Here, for example, is a client in Australia. This is Zek. He's been with eToro for many, many years now. And again, a nice bio. We can find out about the investor, who he is, what he trades, what he likes to do, how often he's been investing, how often he invests himself now on the platform. And then the real key is coming back to sort of stats. We can see this investor's portfolio for all of the years that he has been investing with eToro. So,
Wow.
Over that period, you can see he's had many, many successful years over that time. And again, completely open. We can see everything that he's buying in his portfolio. We can see everything that he's owned, everything that he does own. We can also go back and see history. So you can go back and see what he's bought and sold throughout his time at eToro as well. So when we talk about transparency, this is the top of transparency, being able to see what you're buying in, and how this investor is sort of making money as well. So it's a great way to not only learn, but also if you want to be passive, you can be passive.
I think
as
I've
well.
never seen this kind of feature, frankly speaking, Josh. I mean, I think this is very unique feature of copying someone's, because I think usually people try to hide it. That's what it is. But I think it's so amazing to see that you can actually, but I'm sure it's all confidential, right? Like even if you decide to make your investments public, but you still retain the confidentiality of your customers?
Yeah, so you can have a private profile as well. So there's an option to share publicly. If you don't wish to, no problem. You can have a private profile. You can be hidden. No one needs to know you have an eToro account. So yeah, you have both options. Obviously, if you're somebody who wants to be copied, you'd obviously need to have a public profile, that transparency. But if you're an everyday investor, no problem. Yeah, completely private profile is fine.
Perfect. So if you have enjoyed this session so far, do give it a thumbs up, do subscribe to my channel, and also look into the finance and investment section of my channel for other useful videos around finance and what the future holds. And if you're interested to know more about eToro or signing up for them, do use the links given in my description box to get some additional discount. Enjoy the session.